Okay, so are you ready to like really dive deep into love?
Um,
But not the like typical, the happily ever after. We're going deep into the love that shows up when life gets real.
okay.
And you're not going to believe this.
Okay.
Our source for this deep dive is
Yeah.
notes from a TikTok account.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. I wouldn't expect to
So,
find like these profound reflections on love from a place that's known for short videos.
I know.
But
I kind of,
these notes really make you stop and think,
yeah.
wow, there's some real depth here.
The words are so raw and vulnerable. Like someone just spilled their heart out about how complicated love can be,
Mhm.
especially when, life throws you a curveball.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about what it means to love someone at their absolute lowest point.
Yeah, that first note, when someone loves you at your lowest,
Yeah,
it really digs into that.
it does.
Like it's not about, loving that polished, perfect version of someone.
What?
It's about seeing them when everything's stripped away, all their flaws and imperfections,
Yeah.
and loving them even more because of that.
It really makes you think, like, what does that look like in real life? Is that even possible?
Well, the note kind of paints this picture of someone who's really broken down.
Okay.
Maybe they're struggling with mental health or going through some huge life crisis,
Yeah.
and they might push you away, be irritable,
Yeah.
or not even recognize the love that you're trying to give.
That sounds so difficult.
It is.
You'd have to be incredibly strong and patient to handle that.
You really would.
Yeah.
And that's where the real test of love comes in.
Okay.
It's about holding space for that person's pain, even when you don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
It's about whispering hope into their life when they've lost their own voice
Wow.
and being that constant source of support without trying to fix them or change them.
So it's not about rescuing them
No.
from their struggles.
It's more about being a steady presence,
Oh.
a safe harbor in the middle of a storm.
Okay.
Imagine someone battling depression.
Yeah.
Loving them at their lowest might just mean being there to listen without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
offering a warm hug,
Yeah.
or doing little acts of kindness to make their day a bit brighter.
Okay.
It's all about showing them that they're worthy of love even when they can't see it themselves.
That reminds me of a friend who went through a really rough divorce.
Oh, yeah.
Her partner was just not there for her emotionally
Oh.
at all.
Wow.
And she felt so alone.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It just shows how important it is to have someone who can be there for you
Yes.
during those dark times.
It's not always about those grand gestures or declarations of love. Sometimes it's the quiet, consistent acts of care that really make all the difference.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the next note,
Okay.
a kind partner.
Okay.
This one digs into the potential downsides of always being the bigger person in a relationship.
Yeah.
Always giving and supporting, but not necessarily getting the same in return.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. You try to be understanding and supportive.
Yeah.
Try to be the rock for the other person.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting.
Yeah, it can be really draining.
This note uses powerful metaphors to describe this dynamic.
Okay.
It talks about being the rock, the safe haven,
Okay.
the guiding light,
Yeah.
always absorbing the other person's negativity.
And it acknowledges that that kind of dynamic can build resentment,
Yes.
especially if it's not balanced.
If it's one-sided.
You can end up feeling like a doormat taken for granted,
Yeah.
and your own needs get completely pushed aside.
It's where the idea of emotional labor comes into play.
Yeah.
Every relationship involves emotional work, listening,
Yeah.
supporting,
Right.
validating each other's feelings.
But when one person is always carrying more of that weight,
Exactly.
it creates an imbalance.
Yes. So it's not about refusing to support your partner
Yeah.
or being unkind. It's about recognizing when you're giving more than you're receiving
Yeah.
and setting healthy boundaries.
So how do we find that balance?
Well, the note really makes you ask yourself,
Yeah.
is my kindness being reciprocated?
Mm-hmm.
Am I honoring my own needs while also caring for others?
Right.
It's this delicate dance
Mm-hmm.
between being supportive, but also protecting yourself from burnout.
It makes me think about those relationships where one person is constantly venting,
Yes.
dumping all their problems,
Yeah.
but never seems to offer the same in return.
It happens.
The listener ends up feeling drained,
Yeah.
emotionally exhausted.
That's not sustainable in the long term.
Right.
You have to communicate your needs and expectations
Yeah.
and have open and honest conversations about creating a more balanced dynamic.
So how do you actually do that?
What?
How do you offer support without becoming a dumping ground for negativity?
It's about setting clear boundaries
Okay.
and communicating them assertively.
Okay.
For example, you could say, I'm happy to listen and support you,
Mhm.
but I also need time to recharge and process my own emotions.
Right.
Or, I love you and I want to be there for you, but I can't be your only source of emotional support.
That sounds like it takes a lot of self-awareness
It does.
and courage to have those conversations.
It really does.
Hmm.
But it's essential for healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Now, the third note takes a bit of a turn.
Okay.
It's called the paradox of love, finding wholeness in solitude.
Okay.
And it challenges the idea that love is something we find only from external sources.
So if it's not out there,
Right.
where do we find this love?
The note suggests that the most important love is the love we have for ourselves.
Okay.
It's about recognizing our own worth and
Yeah.
learning to love ourselves unconditionally, flaws and all along.
I can see how that could seem a little counterintuitive. You
Mm.
know, we're always told that happiness comes from finding the one,
Right.
that someone else will complete us. But this
Mhm.
note is saying we need to find that completion within ourselves first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about shifting the focus from seeking external validation to cultivating internal fulfillment.
Okay.
Think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
How can you build a healthy, fulfilling relationship with someone else if you don't even love and accept yourself?
It's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly. It's just not going to be stable.
Right.
And the good thing is, this note doesn't just leave us hanging with this idea.
Okay.
It actually offers some guidance on how to cultivate self-love.
I'm intrigued. What does that look like?
Well, it starts with self-reflection,
Okay.
taking the time to understand your strengths,
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses,
Yeah.
values, and aspirations.
Yeah.
It's about facing your fears and insecurities with compassion and understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and celebrating your accomplishments and recognizing your inherent worth.
That sounds like a lot of inner work.
It is,
Yeah.
but it's the most rewarding work you can do.
So where does solitude fit into all of this?
That's the paradox. The note argues that it's in those quiet moments of solitude, when we're alone with our thoughts and feelings,
Yeah.
that we can truly connect with ourselves and start to nurture self-love.
It makes sense when you think about it. We're bombarded with external stimuli all the time.
Constantly.
Social media.
Yeah.
News work demands.
It's hard to hear your own inner voice with all that noise.
Exactly. So it's not about isolating yourself from the world,
Right.
becoming a hermit.
No.
It's about making time for self-reflection
Exactly.
and introspection.
It's about creating space to process your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
explore your passions, and reconnect with your true self.
It sounds like a practice, something you have to work on over time.
It is. And the note suggests that this practice of self-love is actually essential for forming authentic and meaningful connections with other people.
Okay.
It's only when we truly love ourselves without conditions that we can love someone else in the same way.
That's a powerful message.
It really is. And it leads us to a crucial question.
Ah.
What resonates most with you from these three notes?
Yeah.
Do any of these ideas challenge your existing beliefs about love?
That's something I think our listeners can really think about as we keep going with this deep dive.
Absolutely.
Because it's clear that love is a really multifaceted and ever-evolving journey.
It is.
So stay tuned as we explore these ideas further in the next part of our deep dive. It's interesting how these TikTok notes challenge that, like, picture-perfect view of love.
Yeah.
You know, the kind we see in movies and books.
Right.
It's not always sunshine and roses.
It's so refreshing how these notes remind us that real love takes work,
Right.
understanding, and a willingness to embrace the messy parts.
Yeah, like we talked about before, loving someone at their lowest point. It isn't about, like, fixing them or rescuing them from their problems. It's more about just being there,
Exactly.
offering a safe and supportive space for them to heal and grow.
It's like, imagine you're there for a friend who just lost their job.
Okay.
They're probably feeling lost and discouraged, unsure of their next steps.
Mm-hmm.
Loving them at their lowest might mean helping them update their resume,
Okay.
or offering some words of encouragement,
Yeah.
or even just listening as they vent their frustrations.
It makes me think about how crucial empathy is in any relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Being able to actually step into someone else's shoes,
Yes.
even when they're struggling,
It makes all the difference.
it can make all the difference.
It's about recognizing that everyone has their own story,
Mm-hmm.
their own unique experiences that have shaped who they are.
Right.
And when we come to them with curiosity and compassion,
Yeah.
we open ourselves up to a much deeper understanding and connection.
It's like we're putting on those empathy glasses
Exactly.
we talked about before.
Yeah.
Trying to see things from their perspective, even if we don't agree with their actions or choices.
It's so important to remember that everyone is fighting their own battles.
Yeah.
And when we approach them with empathy, we create a safe space for vulnerability and authenticity.
Okay, but let's be real for a second.
Okay.
It's easy to talk about empathy and understanding,
Right.
but how do we actually put that into practice?
Yeah.
Especially when we're dealing with someone going through a really tough time.
That's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
These TikTok notes don't give us like a step-by-step guide,
Right.
but they do offer some really valuable insights.
Can you give us some actionable tips? Like, how can we actually show up for someone who's struggling?
Well, first and foremost, it's about active listening.
Okay.
Really hearing what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally,
Yeah.
without interrupting or offering unsolicited advice.
So putting down our phones,
Yes.
making eye contact, and actually focusing on what they're sharing.
Exactly. It's about creating a space where they feel truly heard and understood.
Okay.
So instead of jumping in with solutions or trying to fix their problems, we can simply listen with our full attention
Yeah.
and validate their feelings.
Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just be present with someone
Yes.
in their pain.
Absolutely.
Just offering a silent, supportive presence without trying to change anything.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And along with active listening,
Yeah.
it's important to validate the other person's feelings.
Okay.
You know, even if you don't understand why they're feeling a certain way,
Right.
acknowledging their emotions and letting them know it's okay to feel what they're feeling can be incredibly comforting.
So instead of saying, don't be sad,
Right.
or you shouldn't feel that way,
Exactly.
we could say something like, I can see that you're hurting, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
It's about meeting them where they are emotionally, without judgment or dismissal.
Okay.
And sometimes it's also about setting those healthy boundaries.
Right.
Just like that second note, a kind partner
Yeah.
reminded us.
Yeah.
We can be compassionate and supportive without taking on the burden of their negativity.
We need to remember that we can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of ourselves, both physically and emotionally,
Yeah.
is essential for being able to show up for others in a meaningful way.
And sometimes that means saying no
Right.
or setting limits on how much we can give.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance between caring for ourselves and caring for others.
I'm realizing that these notes aren't just about romantic love. They're giving us a framework for all kinds of relationships.
That's a great point.
Whether it's with a partner, a friend, a family member,
Yes,
even a colleague.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The principles of empathy, active listening, validation, and boundary setting,
Right.
they apply to all of them.
Yeah, they can help us build stronger and more fulfilling connections with everyone in our lives.
It really makes you think about the ripple effect of kindness and compassion.
It does.
When we treat others with love and understanding,
Yeah.
it creates a positive energy that spreads outwards,
Right.
impacting not just our own relationships, but also our communities and the world around us.
What a beautiful thought.
And it reminds us that love isn't just a feeling.
Okay.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
A choice we make every day in how we interact with others.
So are we saying that love conquers all?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it needs a nuanced answer.
Okay.
Love is definitely a powerful force,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a magic solution to every problem.
Right.
Relationships are complex.
Yeah.
And there will always be challenges and disagreements.
It's not about living in a fairy tale where everything is perfect.
Exactly.
It's about choosing to face those challenges
Yes.
with love, empathy, and a willingness to work through them together.
And sometimes love means letting go.
Okay.
It means recognizing when a relationship isn't serving us
Yeah.
or when it's time to move on.
Right.
But even in those tough moments,
Mm-hmm.
we can choose to approach the situation with grace,
Yeah.
compassion, and respect.
It's about honoring the love that was there, even if the relationship itself has ended.
Exactly. And it's about trusting that even endings can be opportunities for growth and new beginnings.
So while love may not always conquer all,
Right.
it can definitely guide us through life's ups and downs with
Yes.
more awareness, understanding, and connection.
Absolutely.
These TikTok notes have given us a lot to think about
They have.
in terms of how we approach love and relationships in our own lives.
And it's important to remember that these are just starting points.
Yeah.
The beauty of these notes is that they encourage us to keep the conversation going,
Right.
to explore these ideas further,
Yeah,
and find our own unique paths to love and connection.
absolutely. So as you continue on your own journey of love,
Mm-hmm.
keep these insights in mind.
Yes.
Love yourself, fully embrace vulnerability, practice empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and never stop seeking connection.
And remember, love is not a destination.
Okay.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
A journey filled with joy, pain, growth, and transformation.
And even though the path may not always be easy,
Right.
it's a journey worth taking.
It is.
But that brings us to something really interesting. It seems like these notes are full of seemingly opposite ideas
Mm-hmm.
that actually go together.
Yeah.
Stay with us as we take a look at that in the final part of our deep dive. So we were just talking about how these notes aren't always straightforward.
Right.
Like they're full of contradictions,
Yeah.
but somehow it all makes sense in the end.
I think you've hit on something really fascinating.
Okay.
It's like love itself is a paradox.
A paradox.
Yeah, think about it.
Okay.
It requires vulnerability, but also strength.
Yeah.
You have to give, but also receive.
Right.
You need independence,
Right.
but also interdependence.
So it's like you're always trying to find that balance.
Right, that sweet spot
Yeah.
between those opposing forces.
And maybe that's what keeps it interesting.
Exactly. If love were just simple and predictable,
Yeah.
wouldn't it lose some of its magic?
Yeah, probably.
This constant dance between seemingly opposite ideas is what keeps love dynamic and ever-evolving.
That makes sense. I think that's why these notes resonated with so many people.
I agree.
They tap into something really real about the human experience of love.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always easy. It's not always pretty.
But it's always worth exploring.
Right.
And maybe that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Love isn't about reaching some perfect state of bliss. It's about embracing the messiness, the contradictions,
Mm-hmm.
the constant push and pull
Right.
between our desire for connection and our need for individuality.
It's like we're all on this journey of figuring out what love really means,
Yeah.
both for ourselves and in our relationships.
Absolutely. And there's no one right answer.
Right?
There's no set formula.
And these TikTok notes,
Yeah.
in all their paradoxical glory,
Mm-hmm.
remind us to approach love with an open mind
Yes.
and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
I think that's a great takeaway.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these insightful notes,
Yeah.
what are some key things you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, I hope they'll remember that love is a multifaceted and ever-evolving journey. It's about showing up authentically, embracing vulnerability,
Right.
and practicing empathy, both towards others and ourselves.
And I think most importantly,
Right.
remembering that the greatest love story we'll ever tell is the one we write with ourselves.
Beautifully said to our listener, as you navigate the complexities of love in your own life,
Yeah.
remember, be kind to yourself, embrace the paradoxes,
Yeah.
and never stop believing in the power of connection.
And until next time, keep diving deep, keep seeking truth, and keep loving fiercely.